Of the 100 different engine components to learn about, I think the most important one is camshafts. If you can understand the difference between all the different camshaft configurations, you can really begin to learn about car engines themselves. So let's start with a pushrod engine, single overhead cam, and a dual overhead cam, and what makes them different. So like an old school V8 has one camshaft driving push rods which open and close the intake and exhaust valves. So essentially how the engine breathes is controlled by one camshaft in the block. Now, as engines became more advanced, companies like Chevy decided to stick with that pushrod technology because it's also less expensive to manufacture. Companies like Ford and Chrysler and Dodge implemented single overhead cam, which is essentially you put the camshaft above the cylinder head, which removes the need for push rods, because push rods also can be affected by the heat of the engine block. So by putting the camshafts over the engine block, you reduce the heat that would affect the camshafts operating properly. So you have one camshaft for a V6 in each bank of cylinders, so two camshafts on a V6, and for a V6 with dual overhead cam, you'd have two camshafts for each bank of cylinders for a total of four. So pushrod, you'd have one camshaft, single overhead cam V6, you'd have two total camshafts, and a dual overhead cam V6 or V8, you'd have four total camshafts. Now, the reason this is important is because most internal combustion engines share a lot of similar components, but where the camshafts are, how many are used, determines, how well they meet emissions standards, how well they perform at low range, mid range, and high range, which is